Hey everyone, what's going on? I've got fresh intel for all you freedom spreading legends who've been booting up Helldivers 2 and wondering what that new download was about. We've got a new patch, version 1.004.1101, and I want to walk you through what it seems to change, what it doesn't, and what you can actually expect when you load into your next operation. There's been a bit of confusion because official sources aren't fully updated, while community and press sites are already posting the details. So let me bridge that gap in plain language and give you something you can use right now in your matches. First, let's address the elephant in the room. The official Arrowhead Patch Hub hasn't published a dedicated post for this one yet, at least at the time I'm recording this, which is why some players are scratching their heads. If you head to the Studio Zendesk page, the usual home for patch notes, you'll still see the previous major entries like the Euro 1004 baseline and earlier notes. That doesn't mean the new patch isn't real. It just means the tidy official lagging a bit behind the actual rollout, which happens from time to time in live service land. So if you're thinking, is my game bugged or did I dream that update? You probably didn't. It's just a case of the post not being live while the build itself is already out in the wild. Now, onto what this actually changes for your experience. The big theme is stability and smoothness. Several outlets tracking the rollout mention the same highlights. Fewer crashes across different points of a mission, reduced stutters that could hit right as the action spikes, and some behind-the-scenes optimization on textures and environments. If you've had that moment where you hot join a friend's mission and boom, you're staring at a crash reporter instead of a bug's mandibles, this update should make those scenarios rarer. Performance hiccups around encounter start triggers, like when you kick off a major objective and the game loads in a bunch of enemies and effects, are another area that's getting love, so you should feel a more consistent frame rate during those spikes. That's the sort of difference you notice subconsciously after an hour of play when you realize you haven't had to mutter, please don't freeze, while calling in a stratagem. There are also some targeted fixes that sound small on paper, but can have a surprisingly big impact on how reliable your session feels. Think mission loading stability improving, hitches around ragdoll physics getting toned down so bodies flopping around don't tank your frame rate, and even controller haptics being tuned so your hands aren't going numb at random. Extraction behavior is called out too, which is huge, because that final minute can make or break a run. If you've ever had the shuttle decide to play a magic trick and interrupt the final evac moment with weird behavior, you know that's not just a minor annoyance. Your whole team's time investment is on the line in that last window. The notes circulating say that's addressed, which should make the end of mission crescendo more predictable and less range-inducing. PC players, there's supposedly a platform-specific fix included as well. We don't have a deep technical breakdown, but the way it's framed suggests something aimed at improving performance consistency or a particular crash signature that's more common on desktop rigs. Whenever we get a PC-only bullet point, it usually means either GPU driver interactions or asset streaming behavior got a tweak. So if you're the person in your squad who has the beefiest hardware and yet weirdly gets the most desktop crashes, cross your fingers. This might be the one that clears a few gremlins from your setup. Let's talk expectations. This is not one of those headline-grabbing content drops with brand new enemies, a different biome, or an entire warbond's worth of toys. It follows the new reality Arrowhead explained recently. Less rush on flashy additions, more focus on making the game behave. After the last big content push, there was a clear commitment from the studio to slow down and fix the core experience, trim stutters, squash the high-impact bugs, and generally make sure the foundation is solid before stacking more complexity on top. That pivot is why you're seeing updates like this land with a strong stability focus, and honestly, it's the right call. Give me a smooth 45-minute operation over a shaky 45-minute crash roulette any day. Since the official write-up isn't posted at the usual spot yet, how do you confirm you actually got the patch? You can check the build number on your platform. On PS5, open the game tile, hit options, and look at update history. On PC with Steam, peek at the game's update section or patch notes feed. Third-party trackers like SteamDB also make it easy to spot when a new build goes live. And they already show the previous hotfixes in the big 01004 branch, so you can cross-reference what your system is reporting. And if you're still feeling unsure, you'll know after a couple of sessions. If those crash-prone moments you've memorized aren't nuking your run anymore, the patch is doing its job. What does this mean for your loadout and tactics, beyond just fewer crashes? Performance tweaks change how risky you can play. When the game stutters less during heavy effects, think orbital barrages, stratagem spam, and dense enemy spawns, you can lean into builds that previously felt dicey because they multiplied on-screen chaos. For example, strategies that rely on precise timing during hot extractions benefit a ton from smoother frame pacing. Calling in an Eagle airstrike followed by a clutch Ryan Trackhand reinforce while you kite a horn around a turret field, becomes more manageable when your inputs aren't fighting micro freezes. If you've been avoiding certain weapons because opening the customization screen sometimes felt like a coin flip, those menu stability notes should lower your blood pressure too. Let's address the vibe in the community. Some folks always want new toys. I get it. But stability patches like this are the silent heroes that let the whole experience breathe again. There's an entire layer of frustration that comes from not trusting your game when the stakes ramp up. If you can drop in, finish your op, and feel confident your progress won't get eaten by a crash at the shuttle, that's a bigger morale boost than any single new gun. And once the base is solid, that's when the fun content drops hit harder, because you can actually enjoy them without wondering which effect is going to crash your session. The recent coverage has called out that shift in priorities and hinted that the team is working through a backlog of long-standing technical issues, which tracks with the shape of this patch. There's also the question of how much these changes affect matchmaking and hot joining with friends. Crashes tied to hot joining right as a mission starts have been a pain point, especially if you like to squad up mid-operation. If that scenario is really fixed the way the notes suggest, we're looking at more successful late joins and fewer awkward restarts. That has a practical ripple effect. Your group doesn't have to block off a whole session just to make sure everyone's in the lobby at the same time. Drop in, sync up, get it done. Less friction all around. Another subtle but important angle is how environmental optimization and texture handling improvements impact readability. When textures stream more smoothly, those milliseconds you spend registering a hazard or an incoming patrol shave down. It's the difference between spotting a Shrieker's shadow early versus a split second too late. With environmental tweaks, your brain can prioritize threats better because the scene is a touch clearer and your frame rate isn't wobbling at the worst moment. That helps everyone, but it really shines for players who push higher difficulties where every micro-decision compounds. So what should you test first after updating? My suggestion, run one mission the way you usually do to create a baseline feel. Then deliberately stress the game a bit. Call in a heavy stratagem chain, stack an objective with lots of simultaneous enemies, and see if those classic hitching moments feel smoother. Try hot joining a friend who just started a mission and pay attention to stability. Bring a controller and notice whether the haptics feel more coherent with the action rather than randomly overwhelming. And when you hit extraction, watch for any weird shuttle behavior. If all of that feels cleaner, you're getting the benefits the notes describe. I also want to temper expectations around balance. Reports around this patch are mostly about fixes and performance, not sweeping buffs or nerfs. If there are small numbers tweaks hiding in there, they're not the headline, and we'll need the official notes to confirm specifics. The important takeaway for your build planning is that you don't need to rip up your favorite loadout out of fear that something core changed. Keep your go-to tools, and if anything, consider revisiting those high-effect combos you parked months ago because they were a hitch magnet. This is a great moment to reevaluate them in a cleaner environment rather than expecting a meta shakeup. One more thing about the communication cadence. When official posts trail a bit behind the executable build, players understandably worry about undocumented changes. If you're one of the folks who likes reading the canonical notes, keep an eye on the Arrowhead support hub and the usual channels. Historically, when they publish, the posts are thorough and include known issues sections that set expectations. Until that hits, lean on reputable trackers and press summaries so you're not left in the dark. That lets you make practical decisions, like whether to troubleshoot a crash you're seeing or assume it's already on the radar, without waiting for a perfect world where every patch has a neat blog the instant it lands. All right, let's wrap this into a quick, actionable checklist you can carry into your next deployment without me breaking your flow. Update the game, double-check your platform's update history or Steam's updates tab to confirm you're on the latest build, then run a typical mission to feel the difference. Stress test with heavy effects, keep an eye on frame pacing during encounter spikes, and try a hot join to a just-started mission. If you've got a friend who always crashes in the loadout screen or on the first enemy spawn, have them try again and see if the gremlin is finally gone. And don't forget to push a mission all the way to extraction to verify the shuttle behaves. If you're noticing smoother play and fewer desktop moments, that means this patch is doing exactly what it's set out to do. From a broader lens, this is part of that strategic shift, where the devs want each update to actually reduce friction in noticeable ways rather than pile on new complexity. It's not glamorous, but it's the stuff that keeps squads coming back night after night. Fewer crashes, fewer stutters, and cleaner extractions build trust, and once that trust is reestablished, future content drops land on a stable runway. Think of this as tightening the bolts on your dropship, so when the next big offensive kicks off, you're not worrying about the engine rattling apart mid-flight. So that's the state of things. A stability first update that targets the rough edges people felt the most. A slight delay on the official write-up, but clear evidence that the code is live, and an overall direction that favors reliability over quick sizzle. If you've been taking a break because of performance headaches, this is a good moment to reinstall, sync up with your squad, and see how it feels. If you've been grinding all along, enjoy the smoother ride, and maybe dust off a few chaotic strats that used to make your frames buckle. I'll keep an eye on the official notes, and when they're up, we'll comb through anything extra that didn't filter out through the early reports. In the meantime, spread managed democracy, keep your stratagem calls crisp, and may your extractions be clean and crash-free.